Sometimes the brightest melodies hide the darkest truths. So Lonely sounds like a celebration. But beneath that joyful surface lies something far more unsettling. A story about obsession, isolation, and the toxic loneliness of someone who can't let go. This is the song the police never wanted you to understand. Every song has a story. In 1978, when Sting wrote So Lonely, he had a very specific vision. He wanted to create something that would deceive you. A song about misery that would be sung joyously. A track about the darkest corners of the human mind wrapped in sunshine and smiles. The genius was in the contrast between the lilting rhythm of the verses separated by monolithic slabs of straight rock and roll. Sting admitted he based the song on Bob Marley's No Woman, No Cry, using the same chorus. He took Bob Marley's warm, comforting chords and grafted them onto lyrics about a different kind of loneliness entirely. Not the loneliness of loss, not the sadness of a broken heart, but the toxic, self-imposed isolation of someone consumed by obsession. What the police invented was something completely new. The whiplash between the lilting Caribbean verses and the explosive punk rock choruses. That musical juxtaposition perfectly captured the fractured mind of the song's narrator, a mind that appears calm on the surface but erupts with desperate need. Here's what most people miss about the song's meaning. This isn't about someone who got dumped and feels sad. It's about someone whose need for another person has become so consuming that they've isolated themselves completely. The narrator sits in what he calls a theater that he calls his soul, always playing the starring role. It's a one-man show. No one knocks on his door anymore. He's all made up with nowhere to go. He's been waiting for 1,000 years or more. This isn't the loneliness of abandonment. This is the loneliness of a stalker. Someone who has driven everyone away through their own obsessive behavior. Someone whose constant waiting, watching, and needing has made them untouchable. Sting has always been fascinated by the psychology of obsession. Just a few years later, he would write Every Breath You Take, which would become even more famous and even more misunderstood. That song, about surveillance and possession, was explicitly about a stalker so lonely was the rehearsal. The first time Sting explored what happens when need becomes pathology. The character in So Lonely can't convince himself he could live with anyone else. He can only play that part and nurse his broken heart. He's trapped in a cycle of his own making. The loneliness isn't something that happened to him. It's something he created and now can't escape. The seats in his theatre are always free. No surprise, no mystery. Just the same performance over and over again. A man alone with his obsession, performing for an audience that will never come. When the police started performing So Lonely to massive crowds, people assumed there was irony in a rock star singing about loneliness to thousands of screaming fans. They asked Sting about it constantly. His answer was chilling. No, there's no irony whatsoever. From the outside, it might look a bit strange being surrounded by all this attention and yet experiencing the worst lonely feeling. But I do. And then suddenly the attention is withdrawn a half an hour later. You're so isolated. Think about that for a moment. Sting understood the psychology he was writing about because he lived a version of it. The performer on stage, surrounded by adoring crowds, who returns to an empty hotel room and feels completely alone. The person who exists only in the moment of performance, of being watched, of being needed. It's not so different from the stalker who only feels alive when they're fixating on their target. The rest of the time is just waiting, just loneliness, just the echo chamber of their own thoughts. The song captures that perfectly. The verses are slow, contemplative, almost meditative in their reggae groove. But then the chorus explodes with punk fury. The phrase, "so lonely," is repeated 12 times in the chorus. Not a cry for help, a mantra, an obsession. The only thought that matters. 54 times across the full track, those two words repeat. It's hypnotic, it's disturbing. And most people never stop to think about what that repetition really means, the inability to think about anything else, the circular prison of an obsessive mind. The story of how So Lonely was recorded is almost as fascinating as the song itself. The police borrowed money from Stuart Copeland's brother Miles to record at Surrey Sound Studios in Leatherhead, a makeshift facility with egg boxes on the walls. They had no label, no manager, no prospects. They recorded on second-hand multitrack tape because they couldn't afford their own. The studio was tiny. The setup was amateur, but something magic happened in that cramped space. The band recorded So Lonely on April 1st, 1978, laying down backing tracks and adding vocals over the next 2 days. With just 3 musicians and very few overdubs, they made every note count. Stuart Copeland's drumming was revolutionary. Listen to what he does with the hi-hat during the reggae verses. Andy Summers weaves in and out with his guitar, never taking up too much space, but always essential. And Sting's bass grounds everything, while his voice soars above. When So Lonely was first released in November 1978, nobody cared. It went nowhere. The police were still unknown. The debut album, Outlandos d'Amour, was being ignored. The single didn't chart. But in 1979, something shifted. Radio finally discovered their earlier single, Roxanne. Suddenly, people wanted to hear what else this strange trio had to offer. The record company took another shot, re-releasing So Lonely in February 1980. This time, it climbed to number 6 in the UK. The joyful reggae-punk hybrid became a signature song, and almost nobody understood what it was really about. Here's where things get even stranger. Some listeners didn't hear So Lonely at all. They thought Sting was singing Sue Lawley, the name of a popular BBC TV presenter. In a 2020 survey of UK adults, this misheard lyric was ranked as the most frequently misheard in British music history. More than people hearing tangerine instead of tambourine in Dancing Queen. More than any other song. Sting later recalled that the song was played on national television as an homage to Sue Lawley, but they didn't complain, saying blessings are often unexpected. The misunderstanding was perfect, just like the song itself, hiding darkness in plain sight. People thought they were hearing a tribute to a beloved TV personality. They were actually listening to a song about obsessive isolation and the toxic need for possession. The music video added another layer of confusion. Shot in Hong Kong and Tokyo, it shows the band wandering through crowded streets, performing into walkie-talkies, goofing around Stuart Copeland drums on random objects. It looks playful, fun, nothing sinister at all. But watch Sting's eyes. Watch how he moves through the crowds, alone, even when surrounded by thousands. The video accidentally captured the truth of the song without meaning to. What most fans don't know is that So Lonely has even deeper roots than its obvious connection to Bob Marley's Sting recycled the lyrics in the verses from his earlier Last Exit song called Fool in Love. Last Exit was Sting's jazz rock band before the Police. They played small clubs in Newcastle. They never made it big. But in those basement venues, Sting was already writing about the same themes: obsession, isolation, the theatre of the soul, where one person performs alone. He took those verses about throwing love away, about acting like you don't care while looking like you're going somewhere, about playing a part and nursing a broken heart, and he transformed them. He added the reggae groove stolen from Marley. He added the punk explosion. He created something that sounded new, but carried old pain. It's a perfect example of how Sting worked, taking pieces, reassembling them, creating something that felt spontaneous, but was actually carefully constructed. The pain was real. The craftsmanship was deliberate. Sting never hid what he did with Bob Marley's No Woman, No Cry. He openly admitted that So Lonely was unabashedly culled from Marley's classic, using the same chorus. Listen to them back to back and the theft is obvious. Same chord progression, same warm, lilting rhythm. But the Police didn't just copy Marley, they transformed it. What they invented was the technique of going back and forth between thrash punk and reggae. This became their signature sound, their niche, their innovation. What Marley used to create comfort, the Police weaponized for unease. The same chords that communicate reassurance in Marley's hands become a prison of obsession in theirs. Some called it plagiarism. Sting called it unabashedly culling, and it worked. The formula they discovered on So Lonely would define their sound for years to come: reggae verses, punk choruses, and Sting bringing hooks regardless of the darkness underneath. They took something beautiful and made it disturbing. They took something comforting and made it claustrophobic. And they did it so skillfully that most people never noticed the transformation. When Miles Copeland first heard the recordings from Surrey Sound Studios, he was disappointed with most of what he heard. It wasn't until he heard Roxanne that he became convinced they had something, but So Lonely was different. It showed what the Police could really do. With just 3 musicians, they created a sound that was dense, complex, and completely original. Andy Summers was 35 when Outlandos d'Amour was recorded, and Stuart Copeland had already logged serious miles as a road manager and drummer. These weren't kids playing punk. They were seasoned musicians inventing something new. The band's fresh take on the punk reggae fusion, combined with their undeniable talent, made them stand out immediately once people started paying attention. So Lonely became a set-list staple. A song they would perform for decades, in stadiums around the world, singing about isolation to crowds of tens of thousands. The irony became real. Every night, Sting would stand on stage and scream about being alone. Every night, thousands would scream back. And every night, when the show ended, that isolation returned. The attention withdrawn. The performer left alone with his thoughts. Today, So Lonely is still widely misunderstood. People hear the upbeat melody and assume it's about being sad after a breakup. They sing along at parties. They dance to it. They never stop to actually listen to what Sting is describing. A theatre of the soul where only one person performs. Seats that are always free. No surprises, no mystery. A man made up with nowhere to go, waiting for someone who will never knock on his door again. That's not heartbreak. That's isolation, born from obsession. The loneliness of someone whose need for possession has driven away everything they wanted to hold on to. The prison of someone who can only play one role over and over to an audience that doesn't exist. Sting would explore this theme even more explicitly in Every Breath You Take, which became one of the most misunderstood songs in rock history. Millions of couples chose it as their wedding song, never realizing it was about surveillance and stalking. But So Lonely was where he learned the power of hiding disturbing lyrics behind beautiful melodies. The Police only lasted 5 years as a band, 5 albums, massive success. But they could barely stand each other by the end. Maybe that tension was necessary. Maybe you need that friction to create songs that say one thing on the surface and mean something completely different underneath. So Lonely remains one of their most perfect songs. Not because it's their biggest hit, not because it's their most innovative, but because it captures the essential truth of what Sting understood about human nature. We're all performers in the theatre of our own souls. We all play starring roles in dramas only we can see, and sometimes the loneliness we feel isn't something that happens to us. It's something we create, nurture, and can't escape. The song is also a testament to deception, to the art of making people feel one thing while experiencing another. Sting himself said that the kind of musical juxtaposition pleased him immensely, that they could achieve a song about misery being sung so joyously, so lonely, was more than just a hit single that saved the Police from obscurity. It was a blueprint, a formula for how to write songs that work on multiple levels, how to create music that satisfies the casual listener while rewarding deeper analysis, how to hide psychological complexity in pop simplicity. It showed that you could steal from reggae and punk simultaneously, that you could be musical while being visceral, that you could write about dark subjects without being depressing. That contradiction could be your greatest strength. Every band that came after the Police and mixed genres owed something to So Lonely. Every artist who hid disturbing lyrics in catchy melodies learned from its example. The song proved that pop music could be subversive without being obvious about it. Next time you hear that joyful reggae rhythm and that explosive punk chorus, remember what's really being described: a one-man show in an empty theatre. A person so consumed by waiting and wanting that they've become completely alone. Someone whose loneliness isn't a condition but a choice, repeated so many times it's become their entire identity. That's the true story of So Lonely, a masterpiece of deception, a song about misery sung so joyously that nobody realizes what they're really listening to. The loneliness of an obsessive mind, dressed up in sunshine and smiles. A warning disguised as a celebration. A cry for help that sounds like a party. The most disturbing part? We're still singing along decades later, never quite understanding what we're celebrating. Still mishearing the words, still missing the point, still dancing to a song about being trapped in the prison of our own minds. And maybe that's exactly what Sting intended all along.